The sharp crack of the riding crop sliced through the mansion's ballroom, and the chatter of dozens of wealthy guests died instantly, their champagne glasses halting midair as a young maid pressed herself trembling against the wall. Victoria, the billionaire's fiancée, stood over her, face contorted with fury, gripping the whip as if her fortune alone entitled her to judge who deserved dignity and who deserved degradation. Then the enormous oak doors at the far end of the hall swung open, and the man everyone had been awaiting finally strode inside, only to stop cold, his easy smile vanishing the instant his gaze landed on the scene before him. No one in that room could have predicted that his next words would reshape not just the maid's fate, but the entire trajectory of every soul present that evening. Before we go any further, if you believe that compassion, decency, and the chance to start over matter more than bank balances or social standing, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who values kindness, drop a comment below, and subscribe to my channel for more stories that remind us that respect is every person's birthright. Her name was Amara, and for nearly 3 years she had moved through the mansion like a ghost, silent and industrious, rarely noticed by the wealthy figures who swirled around her. She rose before the sun each morning, preparing breakfast, buffing the vast marble floors until they gleamed, and ensuring every guest's needs were met without complaint, even when exhaustion dragged at her bones. Her only ambition was modest, to save enough money to keep her younger brother in school, their parents having passed away and left him with no one else to count on. That evening, the house glittered with important guests, Victoria having orchestrated an extravagant celebration to announce her engagement to Daniel Carter, a billionaire celebrated for both his business acumen and his reputation for fairness toward those who worked for him. Daniel, however, had been detained by an unexpected meeting, and Victoria's irritation at his lateness simmered beneath her polished smile, though no one dared challenge her mood. Then the mishap occurred. Amara's tray wobbled and a glass toppled, shattering across the floor, and though she apologized immediately and knelt to gather the pieces, Victoria's fury erupted without warning. She accused the maid of carelessness and insolence, her voice ringing through the room as Amara tried to explain that someone had jostled her from behind, but Victoria would hear none of it. The atmosphere turned thick and uncomfortable. Guests averted their eyes or exchanged uneasy whispers, yet no one stepped forward to defend the frightened young woman kneeling in the shards. Victoria demanded a public apology, and Amara, tears pricking at her eyes, lowered her head and complied, knowing full well that losing this position could shatter her brother's educational future. But that apology was not enough for Victoria, who raised the riding crop she had clutched all evening and advanced toward the maid, backing her against the wall as gasps rippled through the onlookers. Still no one intervened. And then the mansion doors swung open once more, and Daniel walked in, expecting music and laughter and celebration, only to find the woman he intended to marry standing over a trembling servant while a room full of people watched in mute complicity. He froze, his gaze traveling from Victoria's furious face to Amara's tear-streaked cheeks, and then sweeping across the guests who had witnessed everything without lifting a finger. And when he finally spoke, his voice was calm yet carried a chill that dropped the room's temperature by several degrees. He told Victoria to put the crop down, and she began to explain, insisting that Amara had embarrassed her and deserved correction, clearly expecting her fiancé to take her side. But Daniel walked past her and approached Amara directly, not asking about the broken glass or who bore fault, his first question being whether she was all right and whether she felt safe. Amara could barely stammer out a reply, and Daniel turned to the assembled guests, asking why none of them had stopped what was happening, the silence that answered him speaking volumes. His father had taught him a lesson that no amount of money could purchase, that a person's true nature was revealed not by how they treated equals, but by how they treated those who could offer them nothing at all. Gazing at Victoria, he recognized a painful truth, that he had loved an image of her rather than the reality standing before him, and with quiet finality, he ended their engagement then and there. Victoria sputtered in disbelief, accusing him of humiliating her in front of their peers, but Daniel replied that what she was experiencing was not humiliation but accountability, and then he did something that left everyone utterly speechless. He walked over to Amara and apologized, not as a billionaire owner of the mansion, but as a fellow human being who had failed to see what was happening under his own roof. And when Amara braced herself to be dismissed, He instead assured her that she bore no blame for any of it. The very next morning, Daniel convened a meeting with the entire household staff and instituted new policies guaranteeing protection from intimidation and mistreatment for every employee, along with a confidential system for reporting abuse without fear of retaliation. But his actions went further still, for upon learning of Amara's circumstances, he discovered that her younger brother was an exceptionally gifted student whose schooling was jeopardized by financial strain, and he extended a scholarship through his foundation, framing it not as charity but as an investment in promising potential. Amara wept when she received the news, feeling for the first time in years that someone had truly seen her, not as a servant beneath notice, but as a person with dreams and anxieties and a future worth nurturing. Over the following months, the mansion underwent a transformation, its corridors no longer haunted by dread, and Daniel wove kindness and respect into the fabric of every enterprise he owned, establishing a foundation dedicated to aiding domestic workers and families who struggled to afford education. As for Amara, she continued her duties but found her life veering in a new direction when Daniel recognized her organizational talents and offered her training for a role within his foundation, an opportunity she embraced wholeheartedly. Years later, she stood in a crowded auditorium at the opening of a new scholarship center bearing the foundation's name, her brother, now poised to enter university, beaming from the front row as Daniel stood beside her. She recalled that night when she had cowered against the wall, certain that one mistake would topple everything she had fought to build, and she remembered the exact moment those mansion doors had opened, admitting a single person who had chosen to speak, whose single decision had rerouted so many lives. The true lesson was never about wealth, for Daniel possessed billions, yet his most profound generosity lay not in the scholarship or the foundation, but in his recognition that dignity must never hinge on one's station. Sometimes the individual everyone overlooks bears the heaviest load. Sometimes one courageous voice can break years of oppressive silence, and sometimes altering someone's destiny begins with nothing more than the simple declaration that this is not right. If this narrative stirred something within you, please pause to like the video, share it with someone who cherishes kindness, and subscribe to my channel, because your engagement ensures that these stories find their way to hearts that may need reminding that compassion endures. And before we close, comment the phrase "kindness has no status" if you truly believe that every human being deserves respect irrespective of wealth, position, or background. Because ultimately, the most powerful figure in that mansion was not the one with the greatest fortune, but the one who finally chose humanity over silence, and that choice forever altered the course of everything.